pace.
It is. You're in Irvine, right?
Yes, Irvine,
Yeah, so it
California,
is.
Orange County.
It is raining over here too in Fullerton. So yeah, we need the rain, right? But I guess under these
Yes,
crazy circumstances, it is nice to get outside when you can. So.
yes, yes.
Well, thank you for joining me. So, for those of you who, well, most of you know me by now in the group, but I have asked my former colleague and good friend, David Hernandez, to join me today. So, David and I go back, oh my gosh, 5, 6 years ago, maybe longer.
Yeah, 2012.
Okay.
So,
Oh, yeah,
so
longer.
can't believe it.
To our corporate trainer days. Well, you're still in corporate. I'm
Yes.
back in nonprofit, but my one stint in corporate, I landed. I got to meet David, and David is a corporate trainer, still works in training, and I'll let him share more about himself. But I had the pleasure of, during my onboarding and training process, to sit in one of your virtual training sessions and learned so much that I thought what fun it would be to have a conversation about your tips and tricks, which really I learned a lot from you, and put it into kind of an agenda and just talk through it, and have you
Perfect.
give some more thoughts to that, because we in the nonprofit world are quickly having to get into the mindset of doing not just trainings. I know you do a lot of trainings, but
Mhm.
meetings, just basic meetings virtually. And I think it'd be fun to talk about what are some good tips for that, and then also any other fun ideas that you have. So why don't you share with everyone who you are and where you work and what you do, and go from there.
All right. Well, I'll start off with the current status. I am a corporate trainer right now for Technologent, and this is a company based in here in Irvine. Our corporate office is right by the Spectrum, and this company here has been growing leaps and bounds ever since it opened up about 18 years ago. So I'm coming up. Actually, next week is going to be my 2-year anniversary with the company.
Congrats.
Thank you, thank you. I am their first corporate trainer that they've ever had, official
Mm-hmm.
trainer. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been just a wonderful ride to be able to bring all the experience that I had over the years and develop a training program. Started off with a new hire onboarding program using technology. So I put everyone through a self-paced type of training where they go in and watch 5 different videos of all the basic software that the company uses, so they can
Okay.
get familiar,
Yeah.
with the program. If it's, for example, Office 365, not everyone's used to OneDrive and Outlook, so I
Yeah.
put down just different videos, training videos for that. For WebEx, we use Cisco
Mm-hmm.
WebEx for them to be able to use that. We
Okay.
also use WebEx Teams to do chats.
Okay.
Their IAM system is within WebEx Teams. So all of that, was my first being able to go in there and develop all this type of training for the company. But then from there, well, a little backtrack there, going back to my years with Corinthian Colleges, which is a vocational school. I worked there for about 13 years, and the first 10 years, I kind of moved up as a admissions representative slash recruiter, student
Mm-hmm.
recruiter, and developed into a management role, director role. So I was actually starting to develop trainings for my team, which grew to about 45 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And corporate office took note of that. So they said, we want this guy at the corporate office. So I was able to become an
Yes.
admissions training program manager. Came back home I was in Texas, and then came back home here to Santa Ana, California,
Mm-hmm.
Southern California guy. So I was really
Yeah.
happy to be back, and was able to develop a lot of trainings. And that's what the focus here, especially having a company that had 15,000 employees, how do you
Mhm.
reach all of them,
Right.
especially with cost? We were using WebEx, and these virtual uh, meetings and trainings were just next level. This was
Yeah.
2012. So just think about how far, we were already ahead of the game. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, and the trainings were just kind of me thinking outside the box, especially because Twitter wasn't as popular, obviously, as it is now in 2012. So they were experimenting still with the hashtags. And for me, if you do research, they're basically the creator of the hashtag. Then everyone started using it, Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, everyone else. So I started using it for fun in our web meetings and our web trainings.
That's right.
Yeah,
I remember.
when we had a certain topic, let's just say if it was like the introduction to the training, we were doing intros or I would call it meet and greet. So I would put hashtag meet and greet. So everyone is doing their hashtag for that. If there was a topic of, let's just say customer service. So let's just say we're going over training customer service. I'm like, all right, let's switch gears now and talk about hashtag customer service. So I would type that into the group chat.
Yeah.
Everyone would start typing in, smile when you greet someone, hashtag customer service, and your attitude is your smile, hashtag customer service. So it's still then it snowballed into engagement. So now everyone is engaged, and then I would be reading the group chat as everyone was starting, and I'm like, wow, Dylan, look at that, chat, he you know what, he has the best hashtag today, and it's just a great way to get engagement from your virtual meetings.
I like that. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I use that all the way up until now. When we have trainings now, that's my thing, and I'm obviously comfortable with it. But also, I know we're going to run down the list, but there's a app. It's a free app. I use iOS, which for iPhone, iPad, it's called Instant Buttons. I know that you had asked me about what app that was, and that app, actually, I can bring it up here right now because it's one of those apps where if you need a sound effect, like immediate sound effect, it actually can give you, let's just say, you want drama, and I don't know if you guys can hear that here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Can't touch this. Let's see if you can.
Yeah. So I actually liked the Jeopardy one.
Yes.
Because when you would ask a question, and when you're on a call or a meeting, you ask a question, and everyone's biggest fear is silence. Yes, and then you end up answering the question, and you're like, no, don't answer the question. So I would actually play the Jeopardy one.
Yeah. There's so many ones here. It is just kind of just instant. When you obviously have it here. Sorry, my phone froze for a second. And the cool thing about this app is just typing in on the actual search feature, and here's everyone. Hopefully it plays now.
Yeah.
So you have that. It says Jeopardy theme music.
Yeah. So people would laugh. I would play that, and people would crack up. They're like, "Is she really playing Jeopardy?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm not getting an answer. I need an answer."
And there's a lot of cool sound effects with that too. Like, obviously, I am the self-proclaimed corny joke person.
Yes.
So every joke or corny joke I would share, there's a laughter icon there too. You tap on the button and you get that
laugh for yourself. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, the crowd's going wild here. Everyone has no idea that I'm actually in a live studio environment, and people are like, is he really?
And what people did not realize is you're actually in a cubicle. So I mean, everybody knew when David was training. I think it was rare to find a private office in where we were, and so I remember I would walk by your cubicle, and I just knew you were in a training because it was like you're putting on a radio show. It was like you're on. It really is like your own radio show. You have to have fun with it. You have to really get into it. So, well, let's go down this list. So you mentioned WebEx. You mentioned Cisco WebEx. Everyone right now that I know that we've spoken to, they're on Zoom or GoToMeeting, and maybe a little bit of Teams. And Teams is more for that that internal environment. But with nonprofits right now, they're putting out Zoom and GoToMeeting for free for 3 months, 6 months, and some of us that's good for short term. But what are some other virtual platforms that you recommend, based on what you're hoping to do with the audience? I mean, both of those tools are great, but I remember using WebEx, and it was perfect for training. It had all the bells and whistles. Any other new tools out there that you've seen that are really
For
cool?
my recommendation, I don't know if it.
Oh,
I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah, you're good.
Did
You
I
froze
freeze?
for a
Okay.
second.
All
Yeah,
right,
you're good now.
And speaking of which, and this is something that I want to either bring up right now or later, just high level here. Wi-Fi right now across,
Yeah,
I would say, the world
yeah,
is suffering.
yeah. It's up and down. You broke up again, like literally as you were saying, suffering.
Meaning buffering.
Yeah,
Buffering. So,
yeah.
So with your question here, I'm a Cisco guy. I'm a WebEx type of advocate. So I would say that if you can invest in WebEx, I would highly recommend it, because just like you mentioned, it's not only user friendly, but security is a huge plus.
Yes.
Cybersecurity, you don't want to have your stuff get hacked, especially if you're training. If you're doing virtual trainings like I am right now with sexual harassment, discrimination, that information right there, that's valuable information that if it gets in the wrong hands, you don't ever want it to be there.
Yeah.
Also, with WebEx, there's so many features. You have just WebEx, your basic WebEx meetings, where you don't really need a password. You just click the link and you're in the meeting. No worry about what's the password, these crazy passwords that they have. And then you have WebEx trainings, where that's obviously my go-to, because I'm able to put, especially if you have a group of 50, you're able to put them in different chat rooms, and breakout sessions. So it is almost like you're in a live training environment, meaning a classroom training where you put people in groups. So that for me is key, especially when you're doing virtual trainings. Now, for basic meetings, I don't have any issues with Zoom, other than what they've already discovered with their security. But I feel like now they're being really cautious on trying to up that cybersecurity a little bit higher. The CEO came out, and he obviously was saying didn't expect the increase over the last few months to be the way it was, but no one knew what was going to happen with all of this, automatic work from home. So I like Zoom, GoToMeeting, all of those. I definitely recommend, especially if it's just going to be for meetings. But if you're going to take it to another level, in my opinion, I would do WebEx, and that's going to be for virtual trainings.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're all used to everyone hears Zoom right now, even with families and friends. And so but I think it's important that you brought up security. I did see that come out this morning about Zoom, that the schools were all about it, and now they're pulling back. So for some nonprofits that are having meetings with clients, or having even team meetings with sensitive information and private information being shared, yes, that is something to think about. So thanks. Okay, so let's talk about then, once you're getting into your meeting, right? What we're about to go over seem very basic, but I think they're good reminders, and any tips and tricks to have in the virtual space versus what we're accustomed to in person is definitely helpful. So number one, prepare an agenda, right? You still want to have an agenda.
Yes.
Personally, I actually think your agenda is more important in the virtual meeting space than in the in-person. Agree? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it goes back to my 3 Ps. And that is planning, obviously, right? Planning is number one, prioritizing, and performing. So that, for me, those are your 3 Ps for virtual trainings or virtual meetings, I would say, because they go hand in hand. So you have planning, prioritizing, and performing, because
Great.
you kind of align there. And also be clear on your own expectations, because it's one thing to be clear and communicate your expectations with your team or with your audience, but it starts with you. You have to be
Yes.
clear on your expectations. All right, what is the objective of this meeting? What is the objective?
Yes.
You write out the objective. You be as clear as possible, because if you don't understand it, no one's going to understand it. So
Right.
you have to be as clear as possible. And some of the simple things I would say, and I have it here, have something to drink.
Yep.
And my recommendation is water, because even right now we're a few minutes in, and that if you don't have that, you have that cotton mouth, and you start developing that dry mouth, or even if you get a cough. And it's okay to mute yourself and say, give me 1 second, everyone, or get off camera for a second, because if you have a cough, or if you have to, no one wants to hear that, doing all that, so they don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Clearing their throat, they don't. But no one does. I don't. But you have to do what you have to do sometimes. And with the power of technology, you can mute yourself. You can get off camera for a second, and then say, give me about 10 seconds, everyone. So everyone's ahead of. They already understand it, and you can drink your water, do what you got to do.
Yeah, you really do, because you're holding people's attention. Like, I remember training, and in that my first couple times, I could feel it when I was like quiet too long, and I worried like the people. People are probably wondering like, are you okay?
Be careful with your wording too. I would say, think before you speak.
Yes.
Because with the, what they call them, word whiskers, the I would say it's better to stay quiet for 2 seconds than to try to use a word whisker or word filler.
And you know what? For people who want to use this as a good this is professional development too. I like to call it, for those who have never done it. We had to record ourselves, right, in at CCI for many purposes. I would go back and listen, and that's how I caught myself very early on in my career. I would go, do I really say that much, in a training? And this is a great opportunity for those of you hosting meetings now and doing these things. Let your audience know, I'm going to record you guys. This is purely for my purposes. Use this as a professional development moment.
Yeah, I was a big person, or a big like person. Well, and I was like, wow, those are like 20 in 1 minute, or 20 likes. So yeah.
So you get better. You get better.
Of course, because you're conscious of it. You say like, and you're like, oh, you slap yourself.
Okay, so I like that. 3 Ps: planning, prioritize, and performing. Great. Okay, so number 2, show up early, start on time, right? That doesn't change. I think start showing up early into the space so that you can prepare all these other things that we're about to get into. But sounds simple, but another thing to remind ourselves.
15 minutes. The most calendar apps, I use Outlook. Most calendar apps, they pop up with a 15-minute reminder. That's usually like across the board. So why wouldn't you log on 15 minutes prior? That for me is either 15 minutes or before. And what I mentioned earlier is, right now we're having a lot of technical issues that maybe you've never had before. The Wi-Fi issues I was mentioning. If you're uploading a PowerPoint presentation, it's not uploading properly. What are you going to do? What's your plan B? So for me, I not only I have PowerPoint, however, I convert them to PDFs also. So I have a backup. So if your PowerPoint slide or deck is not uploading properly, then go with your plan B and upload your PDF version. And that's typically going to save you. And I've had to do it in the past. And then I mentioned to everyone, all right, well, and let them know. So typically we would be going over a PowerPoint presentation. However, I am having technical issues. So at the end of the meeting, I will send you the PowerPoint. I will send you the deck out so that everyone
Oh,
knows that, you actually did take time to create something pretty for them to view. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Wi-Fi is going to be a huge issue right now. But also, test your audio
Yes.
and especially when you're 15 minutes in, you're going to have that person that logs in 15 minutes prior, right?
Yes.
So those individuals, and which is fine, and I'm really happy about that. You know why? Because
Mhm.
I start communicating with them. I'm like, oh, hey Susie, or hey Linda,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Okay, give me a red. Give me a green check mark, right, for WebEx. Give me a green check mark
Right.
if you can hear me properly, or can you use the chat feature? I want to make sure that all the technical issues have been resolved.
Yeah.
And they start using the chat feature. Fantastic. So now I know, okay, I'm not having any audio issues.
Right.
Everything's all good. So
That's great. Yeah, no, that's a good point. If anyone that joins early, then you just say you're a part of my testing moment, and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
usually cool with it. So,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah,
show up early, start on time. I like I'll bring that up again when we talk about the welcome slide, the changing it to PDF. Totally forgot about that. That's good. So this is actually my favorite thing that I learned, which seems so simple, but I just didn't even think to do this. Have some welcome music when
yes.
people join.
Oh
So
yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, well, back in the day when we first met, it was Pandora, right? So
Yes.
everyone was using Pandora. I'm now switched over because of my Amazon account. I have Amazon Music Unlimited. So
Yeah.
basically, any song out there that I choose, or that I'm in the mood, the type of music that I feel that would be appropriate for that day or for that training, that meeting, I
Mhm.
would definitely play. So.
Yeah.
I would recommend though to be careful because
Yes.
even there are certain songs out there where you use the edited version. It may not be edited, and I've been burned a few times for that. It's like, oh no, I thought this was edited, and you're doing an actual training for your leadership team or whoever out
Yeah.
there. It doesn't matter who it is, right? You have to
Right.
be HR appropriate at all times. So
Yeah.
music really gets things going, especially because again, that's testing your audio without letting them know you're testing your audio.
Right.
Because if you have music playing and let's just say you're 5 minutes away, you can type in the chat feature,
Mhm.
does anyone know this song, or
Yes.
who sings this song, and all of a sudden you start getting engagement prior to your training or meeting,
Right.
and a lot of things are going to be covered there. They
Right.
can hear, they can hear the audio.
Mhm.
B, you're already starting to develop a sense of, okay, this is the way the training is going to be. It's going to be
Mhm.
fun. It's going to be engaging. We're going to use a chat feature. So that's a huge thing for me is music.
Yes, no, I agree. And so I was on a webinar a couple weeks ago that I was hosting and moderating. And it just came to me like 5 minutes before because people were starting to log on early. And I was doing what you said, like, oh, welcome, thanks for joining us. But then it was just quiet. And then I looked at my phone and I remembered, oh my gosh, I could totally play music. And I went to Pandora. And yes, you're right. I had that moment of like, ooh, okay, which playlist? And I stuck to the 80s because
Yeah,
typically that's
yeah.
the safer genre.
Stay strong.
And people loved it. I started playing it and someone automatically chatted like, "Who's playing the awesome music?"
Wow,
And I
nice,
just said, "Name that tune." I said, "Name
nice.
that tune," and already the chat was going and it was fun. It was lively and people were getting into it. So I love that little tip. So
Awesome.
find some good welcome music.
Yes.
So also, as people are joining you and you're testing things out, it's good to have a welcome slide. So earlier you said if your PowerPoint isn't working, I like that. Transfer it to a PDF because those are easier to maneuver. But have a welcome slide so people just aren't looking at a blank screen or a black
Yes.
screen. I know depending on the tool you're using, you have to share a screen. So you want to be mindful of everything else on your desktop. So make sure you close stuff out.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
make sure that your Outlook is off, because if you're in those tools where you share a screen, make sure you're only sharing, I wouldn't share desktop. I would share that page or share
Yeah.
that application. But have a welcome slide. And what do you recommend on the welcome slide? Like, logging in, how, testing the chat feature. What are some other things that you have on your welcome slides?
Well, it depends. Obviously, if it's individuals that are familiar with using your platform, your WebEx or Zoom,
Mhm.
then you don't have to go into the basic instructions of, this is how you connect your audio, this is how you chat, this is how you raise your hand, your virtual hand. So if you are going into a training where not a lot of people are familiar with the platform, I would definitely use that as your welcome slide. But if everyone's familiar with it, and right now I'm facilitating trainings all over the country.
Mhm.
So I have people, in New York, Chicago, Florida, all over. And what I like to do is have a question on my welcome slide. It's, what's your current weather? Type it in the group chat. So they are putting, for some states in the East Coast, obviously, depending on the time of year, they're putting 5 degrees or 10 degrees, and then I start engaging with them, and I'm like, ouch, let me send you some hot chocolate or some
Yeah.
tea, or I hope you're having soup for lunch, or whatever the case, and that's my engagement there.
Okay.
As of now, too, especially if it's a local group, I would, with the circumstances now, have an inspirational quote.
Oh,
So
nice.
you put an inspirational quote, and you engage them with, can everyone put an inspirational quote in the group chat? Here's mine. So I have that as my welcome slide. Here's my inspirational quote, and then everyone's putting their own inspirational quote too. So
I
that is
do.
there's one. And also, last but not least, is with jokes and with riddles. I would
Yes.
put in, either a corny joke. I'm like, can anyone provide me with their best corny joke in the group chat? So they put their corny joke in there, or I have a riddle. Please solve this riddle. So that's another way to
Yeah, so that
engage.
kind of led us into the icebreaker. So just because you're on a virtual meeting doesn't mean you can't have an icebreaker. And it doesn't have to take up a lot of time. I think people worry that icebreakers take up a lot of time. And in the virtual space, you only have so much time to get through stuff. But yeah, have it as a part of your welcome slide. And it's another way for you to test things, make sure things are working, people can hear you. And people want to have fun with it. Like they
Mhm.
typically don't want to, like people typically don't enjoy the thought of a virtual training or meeting. Um,
Exactly.
training in general, right? You hear training and you're like, in
Oh yeah.
person. But when you have someone on the other end that's making it fun and inviting, and you see this welcome slide that says, an inspirational quote, joke, or inspirational quote, or give me a corny joke, it's already like, oh, what is this about?
Exactly.
So I like that. So add an icebreaker. It doesn't have to be hard. Like you said, what's the weather like? Or if it's a Monday, what did you do this weekend?
Yeah.
Or if it's a Friday, what are your plans for this weekend? It can be very, very, very simple. Okay.
Good.
Now, I know in training, this is probably not encouraged, but for people in my world who are having short meetings or weekly meetings, and we're not accustomed to video, we're not accustomed to doing virtual meetings, I put on here encourage video sharing when possible, especially with those small, groups, less than probably like 8, because they can all fit on the screen.
Mhm.
But I really do, for all of us in nonprofit, because we're such people oriented, and we're right now, this is really different for us. We're kind of flipped on our head. It's easy, I think, to check out when
Yeah.
you're not on video.
Oh yeah.
And right. And so as the person delivering the content, to make sure that you have everyone's attention and are captivated, I believe one way to do that is to just say, turn on your video.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, make it, you have to make it mandatory, basically, no, uh, and if they don't turn it on, then you have a conversation with them after the fact and say, I'm curious to know, why your video wasn't on, where, right now, everyone is feeling a void with the human touch. And I created a video not too long ago on LinkedIn, and I mentioned that, the human touch element right now is needed more than ever. So with our technology, with our video cameras, which a lot of people are not comfortable with it, you know what? You're not leaving the house anyway, so just go ahead and get camera ready for your 30-minute hour meeting, and
Yep.
be ready. But yeah, there are tips though on that side too, because no, don't know if you see behind me, it's a white background. You got to be careful with lighting. You got to be careful with your camera position, because if I have a window behind me, all you're going to see is just a dark silhouette or shadow here.
Yeah.
So either having a light on you with either a white screen or black or white wall, I should say, that's going to eliminate a lot of distractions. Even if you have something like a frame behind you of a city or all that, that might be a distraction for some people. So just, keep it simple, keep it plain, plain white, or plain background is going to be, it's going to be key. And make sure your camera's positioned too at eye level. You don't want to be looking up, or, have the camera looking down. So
Yeah.
all of that is going to go through your preparation and your test.
Right. Yeah. So today, because it's gloomy, I'm actually sitting next to a window, which usually brings in good light. But with the gloom, it didn't. So I actually have a ring light above me
Nice. Yeah.
now. So I
So
had
those
that.
are really, really. I have where I'm at. I have three windows of, coming. It's a whole area here where I'm at. So I have just like a huge window and sky illuminated. So I have good lighting here too.
Yeah. So yeah, be camera ready and encourage video sharing. And that's another reason why you want to jump on early, to make sure all that looks appropriate. Cool.
Yeah.
So the next one, I did this one. I know David was like, well, what's mission moment? So typical in nonprofit, especially monthly meetings with the team, we share a mission moment. This doesn't have to stop. So I just wanted to add that to the list, that for everyone listening, there's still amazing, great things happening both in nonprofit and I'm sure in corporate. I'm sure you have great stories to share when you meet with your team, but this doesn't have to stop. So start the meeting off with a mission moment. It doesn't have to be by you. Encourage people on the call to share one. Like, what did you? And maybe it's not about your mission. Maybe it's just something great you saw happen this week or in the last week, given everything that's gone on. But start with the mission moment to kind of keep people, alive and invigorated. So that's what the mission moment is. Anything else you want to add to that?
I agree. You want to set the tone. Every meeting, every training, any type of gathering where you're either facilitating is going to, you set the tone. And positivity, that is key. So you keep it positive, you keep it, for me, humorous, all of that. You really get people their energy and a positive sense, then you set the tone for your meeting.
Yeah, great. And then as you get into the meeting, I put here, share your agenda. So you have an agenda, don't hide it, put it out there. So share the Word document or share it on a PowerPoint slide or a PDF, but let people know. You could even share it in advance, obviously, but I actually think it's great to share it in the meeting itself, right?
Yes, I agree. That's vital. That's vital, because people want to know exactly what the objectives are. Why I'm on here. The whole with them, right? And for me, like,
Right.
like, do I even have to be a part of this meeting? I know that there's some memes out there that say another meeting that could have been an email, right?
Mhm.
So give them that with them factor from the beginning. What's in it for me? All right, well, here's what we're going to cover. And I do agree with you about not sending it ahead of time, because if you send it ahead of time and you make some last minute changes, then okay, they're going to say, wait a minute, what happened here? I thought we were going to cover this.
Yeah.
or I didn't see that in the original agenda. So
Yeah.
have it clear. Make sure that, again, you understand it, they're going to understand it,
Yeah.
and then go back to it too. I would say if it's something that you're covering five topics,
Mhm.
I would say around the two or three, that third topic, you
Yeah.
go back to the original agenda. And I usually have like we've checked this one, you check this one.
Right.
So you put up a slide and say, all right, we've covered these three items so far. Now we're going to cover these last two. So now
Yes.
they know, all right, well, we got two more to go. And, I had a question about that one. So,
Yeah. And while you're sharing it, you kind of got into that. Take notes on it, like as you're going through the agenda, especially if it's a Word document, because you
yes.
could share the document and type as you go along. I did this just the other day in a meeting of like 8 of us. As people were talking, I was jotting down what people were saying. So then
Yes.
you have the verbal, the visual, and for me, it's kinesthetic. Like I like to be doing something while
Yeah.
I'm working. So you've got people talking and you've got people seeing the notes. It also makes those who offered a suggestion or who said they would do something accountable because they're actually seeing their name being typed and seeing
Oh,
their
yeah.
name going down. So I've seen in instances where I've been on calls where this is happening, people are actually clarifying more what they said, or they're actually, saying it a little differently. Well, no, that's not what I meant. I'll do this. I'm like, okay. So as the moderator or facilitator, take notes on the computer while you're going. I know it takes time to figure that out, but I'm sure we're all being very gracious with one another, but
Mhm.
challenge yourself to actually
Yeah.
take notes as you go.
I agree,
Mhm.
especially again using technology. Most of our phones are going to have free dictation apps. So if you are not the best person to multitask and type by taking notes, pull up your phone and use that dictation app. So as you're speaking, right, in your training or your meeting, your
Mhm.
phone is actually picking up all your notes. So you're actually
Oh,
going to be able to go
yeah.
back to it and say, wow, everything that I spoke about is right here on my dictation notes. So, for
Yeah.
example, Victoria has a question, is like, oh, great question, Victoria. So you were asking, how are we going to supplement this? So you're talking, but people don't know that your phone is
You're actually
dictating
oh,
what you're saying. So that would be another key. Unless you have a platform, once again, like
mhm.
WebEx, Zoom, whoever, that
Yeah.
actually has the feature of recording the meeting. So if
Yeah.
you're able to record the meeting, you record all the content that's in that meeting, so you're not really too stressed out about taking your notes.
Yes. And also the chat, it copies the chat, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I get that downloaded right after. And actually, some people probably don't even know that's happening because on GoToMeeting, it's it automatically creates a file somewhere and it's
Beautiful.
downloading the chats. And I knew that it could do that, but I didn't know that it had automatically done it and it was
Excellent.
floating around in my computer. So yeah, so
Perfect.
take note, but I like that, the dictation. That's so true. Um, and then so as you're going through the agenda and you're taking notes, I know one of people's biggest fears is silence and not getting an answer. So there's the term call people out. I actually like to use the term call people in to the conversation. So I think as a trainer or facilitator in online meetings, you have to get comfortable with the silence, but I think you have to be even more comfortable with calling people in and checking in on them and saying, "Hey, David, haven't heard from you in a while. What do you think?" Or if you have the video feature and you see someone nodding and you see
Mhm.
someone being intent, you could say like, "Oh, David, it looked like you agreed with that. What do you have to say?" So you have to be more attuned to the people on the screen.
I completely agree with that, especially if they're not using their video feature. And
Yeah.
Not too familiar that with Zoom or GoToMeeting, but if on WebEx, if someone has minimized their screen, there is a red X that would pop up, so you know that they're not actually
That's
in
right.
the meeting and they're doing something else, meaning they opened up another browser or they're multitasking, they're not really paying attention. So that's typically the individuals I go after, and I go after in a way where it's not really saying like, Kim, are you paying attention? Or hello, Victoria, are you there? Or, nothing, because
Yeah.
who am I to say if this person actually has to go to a restroom break or whatever?
Right.
So what I do is I've done this multiple times. I use the name of the person I see in an actual
Hmm.
in a scenario where it's like a hypothetical scenario, and I say, all right, everyone, let me give you this hypothetical scenario. Um, for this scenario, we're going to say Kim is being a great team player always by asking her to so I make sure that that person, let's
Yeah.
just say if it's Kim or if it's Kim and Victoria, right? It's like, all right, Kim and Victoria are in a one-on-one meeting. So Kim asks Victoria, and all of a sudden, I see
All of a sudden, Kim and
yeah,
Victoria's screen is green.
it goes from red to green. All of a sudden, they're there,
Right.
and I'm like, so remember, this is just hypothetical, and I'm not calling you out, Kim and Victoria. This is just hypothetical. I'm just using your
Yeah.
names when I see them come back, right?
Mhm.
So I've done that before, and it's actually worked out pretty good. But
Yes.
when I've done that and they don't pay attention or they don't come back, that's when I know, all right, this person just is not there.
Yeah, they're not at their computer. No, I remember that about the WebEx feature. You could see if their screen, if they weren't looking at their screen, and then even afterwards, it would run a report, right?
Yes.
And it would tell us on screen
Yes.
time, or there was a function or feature. Because we actually would have to document, because they were in actual training. They got credit for, it was like
Legal.
right, it was a legal compliance issue. So for those of you listening that you are worried about you're doing meetings or programming with clients and you want to ensure that they're present, then maybe Zoom and GoToMeeting is not capable of doing that, and you might need that feature over on WebEx. So yeah, so calling people in, and I like that clever way of the hypothetical story and just
Yeah.
using names. You're right, because it does alert you, because you're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my, someone said my name.
Oh,
What?
what? They're calling me. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Honey.
That's great. Well, I love how you weaved into this using all your tools. So I think it's so important that whatever we do choose to use, Zoom, GoToMeeting, WebEx, really, really play with all your tools and really use them to your full advantage. I was on a call the other day, and the moderator had like 20 of us on the call, and
Wow.
yeah, and she was dictating our conversation, and she pulled up the whiteboard, which I thought was
Oh,
good,
nice.
so we could all talk. It was through Zoom, and because I know these things, she was like, okay, go ahead and start talking, and here's the question, and I'll just start typing. Well, I actually went up to the annotate button, and I clicked on the text box and picked a color, and I went in and I typed. I said, we can type our comments too, and then clicked out, and it popped up, and she's like, oh, you guys can do it too. And it was just one of those fun things that I wanted her to know that you don't have to do this alone. Like, you don't have to, be the one up at the, literally in a in-person meeting, one person's at the whiteboard and one person's writing, that this can be much more inclusive. This can be a lot more fun and engaging, and we can play in this as well,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So really get to know your tools. Earlier you said use hashtags in the chat. So use the chat box. I know some people, if you have a lot of people on the call, it might be easier to use the chat versus unmuting it, leaving everyone unmuted. Recordings. What else? What other tools do you recommend leveraging?
Well, again, it's going into what platform you're using. So you mentioned the whiteboard. You mentioned just different platforms are going to have different ways of. I know that Zoom has that virtual background type of thing. So
Oh,
you
yes.
know, if your WebEx has it too, however, just on their mobile app for now.
Mhm.
But you know, for Zoom, if you want to keep it light and fun, if you say, all right, everyone, let's take a trip. You know, who pick your favorite city. Let's go virtual and have everyone, you know, use that virtual background. Yeah, it's like, all right, we got San Francisco here. You got New York. Wow, who's at the beach? You know, this
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that. So you know, using those tools, being able to engage them that way, I think
Right.
it's going to be all that. But you covered it with that whiteboard. I think that's one of the best things to do is to
Yeah.
have everyone share on that setting. It's really great for engagement. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to do.
Yeah, yeah. Any other free tools and apps? So earlier you mentioned Instant Buttons. I love that app. I still have it. There's the dictation apps now. Any other tools that you just are always using now in this virtual world, virtual space?
Well, if you're an iOS user, there are many tools that you can use to not only create content. One of them is I'm a huge advocate for the Clips app. It's a free Clips app. I post certain videos either on LinkedIn or YouTube using the Clips app. It's real fun. It's a dictation app too. If you're going to create videos, so maybe if you have a meeting coming up and there's a certain topic you're going to cover, maybe create a quick video and send it out to your team. It's like, all right, you know, make it fun. It's like, this is the type of topic we're going to be covering today. And there's so many things you can use virtual backgrounds for that Clips app as well.
Okay.
You can, and then with dictation. So that's more for on the creative side, meaning maybe you put in an actual, it's part of your design, meaning your PowerPoint, if you want to include yourself in a virtual background or things like that, you can use that. But yeah, as far as, like I said, dictation apps, the music apps, whoever, you know, Spotify, Pandora, and
Yeah.
like I mentioned, Amazon Music. Those are free tools there for you to use and to engage your audience.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. And then last but not least, just want to throw in there, have fun, right? You have to have fun. I mean, even me doing this is a totally new world for me. I mean, I'm used to training online and hosting virtual meetings. So for me, the next step was testing out the broadcasting and going live feature, and I'm having fun, right? I think we're in a time right now where everyone's being very gracious and there's really not a lot of judgment. It's like, just figure it out and have fun with it.
Yes, have fun. That's key. I mentioned that earlier. If you start off positive, you start off smiling, you start off joking,
Yes.
everyone sees the type of tone, type of meeting you're going to have. And I mentioned it too. I facilitate harassment discrimination trainings, which, you know, how you're going to have fun with those.
Yeah.
However, there are some points where, you know, you can use humor to get break that tension. You know what I mean? And
Right.
you know what I always like to start off with the training. I'm like, all right, I know everyone's looking forward to this training, so you know, kind of get everyone like what, and then even let them know. I said, well, I know the title is harassment discrimination. However, what I like to call it is common sense training, you know,
Yeah.
or things like that. And they're like, oh, you know, so
Yeah.
things like that to kind of ease the tension or get everyone mindset in a way where it's going to be positive or it's going to be fun. That's key.
Yes. Yes. Any way you can flip it, and I think it's important too, as the person preparing to moderate, preparing to train, knowing what you just said, like, I know going into this is not a favorite topic, or this is not everyone's favorite part of the day. So how can I make sure that I don't start it off that way as
Oh
well?
yeah.
Right. So easing the pressure, starting off really fun and engaging. Like, you have to own it and understand that the people on the other end are not excited about this. So how can you make sure that you're not just as unexciting and boring as the content? So, which I think is another thing that our nonprofits are realizing, which is okay. I think it's okay for us to recognize this, is not everyone is meant to to do online training or even be a trainer or a facilitator. So I think it's also a good time for leaders to just take notice of that and take stock. If there's someone that really, really does love doing it and really, really is engaging, like, encourage them to do more of it, right? So this is also a time for leaders to also step back and encourage those who have the energy for it and enjoy it. And for those that don't, I mean, we're not all meant to do this. It is hard. It is uncomfortable for some.
Yes, I agree. That's
Yeah.
it. You find the people that are gifted. You find the people that absolutely hate it or despise it. Don't put them
Yeah.
to lead the meeting or the trainings.
Yeah. In fact, I always tell people my getting hired at CCI was actually one of my proudest hires, processes that I actually got hired there, because I think I went through 3 interviews and a panel interview, and a lot of it was assessing and measuring this, like the
Yeah.
ability to be able to do this. And it was one of the hardest interview processes I ever went through. But they really knew what they were looking for,
Yeah.
and I met amazing people and trainers through the process. So I think you have to be okay with vetting a certain
Yes.
way and know what to look for and know what to be okay with accepting and not accepting, and then seeing people where they're at and being gracious too. So
Yeah, I agree.
cool. Well, thank you, David. Any last thoughts you want to share with our nonprofit community?
Sure. It's you mentioned it as far as process. Just remember everything that you do is a process. So go back to it and just get better. Get better at everything that you do. Even if you think that you have the best type of interview, the best of training, the best meeting ever, you type or you had the best agenda ever, it can always get better. So just don't be satisfied with what you have, because there's always room for improvement.
Thanks, David. And thank you so much for doing this so last
You're
minute.
welcome.
I texted you this week. I'm like, hey, you want to do this? And you were so game. So thank you so much. So, okay,
You're
well,
welcome.
we are done here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and everyone who's going to watch later. If you have any questions, feel free to, keep putting them in the text in the chat. And then on Wednesday, just so people aren't confused, Wednesday we're going to go over a little bit more in depth of the virtual instructor-led training. So we've got some nonprofits that are trying to actually transition their in-person programming to an online model. So we're going to go a little deeper on how would you go about literally transferring something in person to online from a content standpoint. So if that's something you're interested in, then we'll see you on Wednesday. So,
Awesome.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.